Hey everybody, how's it going? This is John Breed and it is February 15th, 2021. It is a Monday morning here. A very long day in Daytona is in the books. And Michael McDowell is your 2021 Daytona 500 champion. I am not making that up. Michael McDowell, the journeyman driver out of Glendale, Arizona, 36 years old, driving for Front Row Motorsports. His first win in his 358th start. And he was running third on the last lap. Joey Logano and Brad Keselowski tangled, battling for the lead going into turn 3, causing a huge wreck behind him. And he held off Chase Elliott just before the caution lights came on. And Michael McDowell is your 2021 Daytona 500 champion. Hats off to the guy, one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet in the garage. And he's now officially in the playoffs. So that's big news as well. Holy smokes, what a crash at the end of that race. Very hard hits for Brad Keselowski and Kyle Busch. And initially when I saw it, I was pretty worried. I was worried for both of them. I mean, some really nasty hits there. And luckily everybody is okay. Everybody got out under their own power. And that's always great to see. So, this Daytona 500 was fairly nothing happening. It was up until the very end, obviously. A lot of single file racing. Not exactly what I expected. And I expected it to pick up around 30, 40 laps to go. I figured it was going to get good right around there. And so Denny Hamlin, he was dominating the race. He led 98 laps. They came in and they made green flag pit stops around 30 to go. And so I figured, okay, we still have one caution coming. And it's going to double file everything up, and then things are going to get interesting. Well, Denny Hamlin, those guys, they came into pit. The Fords came in about a lap or two before them and got out in front of them, which, by the way, I mean, really, when you go back and look at this thing, I mean, that changed the whole course of this race, is the Fords getting out in front of the Toyotas after the green flag stops. And so Denny's back in the middle of the pack. Joey Logano's up front. Harvick's second. And they're all racing single file. And so I'm like, okay. So at some point here, I mean, somebody's going to pull out a line and they're going to start pushing towards the front. And this is when it's going to get interesting. And we're going to see one more wreck and they're going to double file them up again. And so the laps were winded by, and Logano's leading, and Harvick's in second. Brad Keselowski's right back there. And I'm thinking, man, like, is any of these guys back there? I mean, you have Austin Dillon back there in 5th. You have Chase and Kyle. I think they were both 7th and 8th. Of course, Denny's back there in the middle of the pack. And I'm thinking, okay, at some point, somebody's going to go, right? Like, they're not going to wait until the last lap, because they should know better. That never works. Well, they keep going here, and it's winding down. 10 to go, 8 to go, 6 to go. And I'm thinking, man, this is unreal. Nobody's going to pull out until the last lap. I can't believe this. So they get down to 2 to go. And I thought, nobody has still pulled out a line yet. I mean, what are they waiting for here? And, I mean, especially those guys back in, like, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th. I mean, you cannot wait till the last lap. And so they're going down the backstretch, and Brad Keselowski makes a move to second under Kevin Harvick. They hung Harvick out. And I was like, okay, so now the Penske cars are running 1-2. Obviously, Brad's not going to want to settle for second, but they should probably work together to try and win, at least have one of them win this race. So they take the white flag, and still nobody really yet is trying to pull out a line. You see them kind of backing up a bit. You know, McDowell and everybody third on back. They want to try and get a run on these guys, and I'm like, all right, well, something's got to give here. And as they're going down the backstretch, McDowell gives a huge push to Brad. And he pushed Brad into Joey, which caused the wreck. And Logano spun to the inside. Brad spun up against the wall, hit the outside wall, and then got absolutely just crushed in the right side by Kyle Busch. Very hard impact, right in like the right rear corner panel. And his back end actually tagged the catch fence at one point. And just a violent wreck. Kyle was involved. You had Brad. You had Austin Cindric. You had a couple of other guys. Obviously Logano. And so my initial reaction when I saw Brad's hit, when I saw Kyle hit Brad, I mean, I leaped up. And all that was going through my mind, actually two things were going through my mind. When the caution came out, I thought, oh my God, I hope these guys are okay, because this was a really bad wreck, and it just looked really bad. And then I'm also at the same time trying to process that I believe Michael McDowell just won the Daytona 500. And so, luckily, Brad's winning net was down pretty quick, and it took a second for Kyle to get out, which scared me there a little bit. I was really worried when they shot his car, and he wasn't out yet, and the safety crews were kind of just standing there, and then Mike Joy said they were attended to him, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I can't even handle this right now. But luckily, he got out. He got out. It was a huge sigh of relief. And then, of course, yeah, I mean, I didn't know it. The replay they showed, it looked like Chase had passed him before the caution light came out, but obviously that was not the case. Just the way the angle was shown, I was a little skeptic there. But Michael McDowell did end up winning, and I mean, I just don't understand. I just don't understand waiting until the last lap. I mean, if you're second or third, it's not a bad move, but I mean, if you're back there in 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th place, why are you waiting? I mean, we've seen in the past it does not work. I mean, you have to go sooner. And I mean, the single file, the way that is, I mean, it's not going to work from back there. And obviously, I thought, okay, if these guys wait till the last lap, I thought for sure what was going to happen is everybody was going to try to make their move. There was going to be a wreck on the backstretch. Joey Logano was going to win. And I had no idea, that wreck up front was going to happen. But, yeah, I mean, just overall, I mean, the biggest takeaway I had from this was, like I said, I'm just glad everybody was all right in that big wreck, because that was a very scary wreck. And, man, it's just like if you're Brad, I mean, you get hit like that, you hit the outside wall, and, I mean, you were just a sitting duck. And you're so slowed down from what you were going. I mean, you didn't come to a dead stop, but you're still pretty slowed down from where you were. And you have all these cars just coming right at you at full speed. I mean, it's scary. It was a really scary-looking wreck. And more than anything, I was just glad everybody was all right. And, yeah, fairly boring race up until the very end, obviously. And even the end I didn't really like because, like I said, I was just so concerned about that wreck. But happy for Michael McDowell. I think that first wreck there at lap 14 really set the tone for this race. I just think, everybody did not want to race as hard and risk getting caught up in a wreck right after what happened at lap 14, which, I mean, I know some fans are going to be mad about that, and they wanted to see exciting racing, and I did too, but I try to think of it from the perspective of a driver. I mean, if I just saw that wreck at lap 14, and if it's lap, 77 of 200, I mean, I'm not racing hard. I'm gonna get in that single file line. I'm not racing hard. Now, why they didn't race harder with 20, 30 to go is beyond me. And I mean, a lot of that is just, they're worried if they pull out a line, nobody's going to go with them. And that's a fair argument. And, I mean, I don't know how you fix that. I mean, you can have meetings and things like that and talk to so-and-so and be like, oh, let's, if we're together, if we're in line together, let's just go. And, I mean, sure, you can do that, but, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I was expecting another caution, and it didn't come, and so I was like, well, I mean, it looks like we're waiting till the last lap here, and it only paid off for one guy. That's the thing. It only pays off for one guy. And so if you don't go sooner, you're not going to have a chance. And a lot of those guys didn't even really get a chance. But I think had they raced back to the line, Austin Dillon would have won, by the way, because they were 3 wide when the caution came out. Chase was in the middle, McDowell was on top, and Dillon had the bottom. So I believe Austin Dillon would have probably won had they raced back to the line. And had they thrown the caution probably a second or two later, Chase Elliott, I think, would have won, which, in hindsight, I mean, it's going to sound weird, but in hindsight, I'm kind of glad he didn't win, just because, for my sake, I would have to hear for months from fans how NASCAR is rigged and they waited to throw the caution so Chase Elliott could take the lead. I would have heard that for months, which is a preposterous claim because, I mean, it's a complete judgment call. And they throw the caution on the last lap if they feel that they need to attend to the drivers. And that wreck was very bad. And so, I mean, there was no question you had to throw the caution on that one. So, yeah, I mean, they threw the caution and they didn't wait. So you can't sit here and say that that this one's rigged, I don't think. But, yeah, hats off to McDowell. And, I mean, the only other big story from this race was obviously that big 16-car wreck at lap 14 right before the red flag for rain. Which, by the way, if you ask Mike Joy, the entire red flag was not for rain, but it was for the big wreck. He said that twice. He said, we're not under the red flag for rain, but for this. And they would, like, show the replay or whatever. That's it's a very long cleanup for a big wreck. So, yeah. Anyway, I knew what he meant. But anyway, so lap 14, Kyle Busch is pushing Christopher Bell on the bottom, and Bell gets up to Almirola. They're like Bell and Busch are like the second and third car in line, and he hits Almirola. Almirola goes up into Bowman, collects 14 other cars. Newman was involved, the feel-good story of the weekend, out early, lap 14. Kurt Busch was involved. Number of others, Ryan Blaney, Eric Jones, William Byron. A lot of contenders were involved in that wreck. And, I mean, I saw a lot of people blaming Kyle Busch for the wreck, which, I mean, I'm not surprised because they just want to blame Kyle Busch. But, dude, if you watch it, that was all Christopher Bell. I mean, he got the push from Kyle, but he was well off of Kyle Busch's front bumper by the time he got to Almirola. And he just never lifted, really. And, yeah, it was a tough break there for a lot of those guys. Took out a lot of contenders early. And, I mean, what can you say? I mean, after that, like, why would you want to race 2 and 3 wide, you know, until the very end? And again, the very end, I still can't understand why they didn't race harder. But so that was at lap 14. Kevin Harvick had led pretty much the majority of those early laps. Bowman had led the first lap, but Harvick got to lead pretty quick. And then the red flag came out for the rain, and it was about a 5.5-hour rain delay. By the way, I don't know who needs to hear this. I don't know if it's NASCAR. I don't know if it's Fox or somebody. But these races, at least for the Daytona 500, they need to start sooner when there's rain in the forecast. I mean, they should have known the past couple of days it's been calling for rain. And they need to start sooner so they have more time to try and get it in. And I know the whole deal, I think, is because they want, you know, the race to start a little bit later for everybody on the West Coast. And that's fair, I understand that. But at the same time, I think you need to cater most to the fans that come out to the racetrack, and, you know, so they don't have to wait around in the rain in a rain delay. Now, of course, I know somebody's going to say, well, you know, it can rain at any time. What does it matter? And you may be right, but you know what? Had you started at 12 or 1 o'clock, you would have had 2 extra hours to try and get in the race. And granted, they did get in the race, but they almost didn't. And so, and to add to that, I mean, it wasn't even raining around 12 or 1 o'clock. It was sunny out. So you could have gotten in a little over half the race probably between 1 and 3 o'clock, depending on how it went. But yeah, that was that. Oh, also in that first stage, Derek Cope hit the wall lap 4. They also paid tribute to Dale Earnhardt on lap 3. Everybody held up 3 fingers in salute to him. And I want to add also, Pitbull was the Grand Marshal, and Sasha Banks, WWE superstar, waved the green flag. I want to add that in as well. So they had a 5.5, 6 hour rain delay, however long it was. And they went back green, and like I said, not too much going on. They got single file, and Chase Briscoe wrecked with Quinn Houff. Quinn Houff had a flat tire. William Byron was out there on the track, and he had some damage to his car, and the sheet metal was falling off of it. And I guess one of the pieces came off, and Houff ran over it and had a flat tire, collected Chase Briscoe. And so that was that. So Denny Hamlin took the lead in this first stage and pretty much just dominated. I mean, this first 2 stages, as well as towards the end, was all about Denny Hamlin leading. And so he got out front, and he won stage 1. So there you go. Stage 2, not a lot happening again. I mean, they got single file. There was 1 wreck with Christopher Bell. Christopher Bell actually led a decent amount of laps in this race, but had a flat tire and collected a couple other cars. Kyle Larson was involved, and so tough break for Christopher Bell. But once again, stayed single file for the most part, and Denny Hamlin won the second stage. And then, of course, they got to the last stage and kind of split the stage in half. They ran about 30 laps, and then they took green flag pit stops. All the Fords pitted before the Toyotas did, and so they all came out together in this huge pack. And then the Toyotas came in. It was like it was only like Denny, Kyle, and Bubba all came in together. And so when they got back out there, they were separated, and they had no shot at holding off the freight train of the Fords that was coming. And Bubba Wallace actually came in late. He had a vibration going on, went a lap down. That was a couple laps after his green flag stop. But that was the big shift in the race. I mean, Denny was dominating, but he got out behind the Fords, and Logano took the lead, so Denny was back there at the end of the single file line, and that put Logano up there with Harvick and Brad Keselowski and Cole Custer as well. Cole Custer was up there in the mix, and then he got hung out at one point. And so then, yeah, as mentioned, I mean, Brad got to second there, coming to the white flag, and Logano was up front, and he and Brad had a pretty good distance on the rest of the pack coming off turn 2, and I figured, okay, if the caution comes out, I mean, no matter what, Logano's going to win. They have no shot. And, of course, then the big push came. Brad had a full head of steam, hit Logano. They both wrecked. Calamity in turn 3. Bunch of hard hits. And Michael McDowell won. Yeah, overall, not a very exciting Daytona 500, but until the very end. Obviously, the end was pretty crazy, but yeah, I would not say this was not one of my favorite Daytona 500s, that's for sure. It wasn't all that exciting, but it was better than 2013. I'll leave it at that. I mean, it was certainly better than 2013, but yeah, there you go. That's the Daytona 500. We had the Xfinity race on Saturday. Austin Cindric won the race. Pretty dominating performance, you could say. The big story there was with 15 laps to go, teammates Ty Dillon and Daniel Hemrick set off a big wreck. Ty Dillon had a push down the back straightaway. This is up towards the lead. He had a big push from Josh Berry, and Dillon was behind Hemrick, and so he got a big run and went in the middle. So Dillon was in the middle. Hemrick was on the bottom, and they went into turn 3, and Dillon had such a full head of steam, and he tried to get down in front of Hemrick and just kind of cut him off and triggered a big wreck. Justin Allgaier was involved. Bunch of other cars. Justin Haley, I believe, was in it as well. This poor Ty Dillon, man. I mean, just one bad day after another. Missed the Daytona 500 on Thursday. Got in this car. I picked him to win, and he was up there, battling for the lead multiple times in the race, and made a bad move. And let me just say, too, I loved Tony Stewart and Clint Boyer in the booth together. I thought they were the best. I mean, Clint and Jeff and Mike were also great on Sunday. Mike Joy had a few lines here and there that I was just not so crazy about. The red flag one being the example. But, yeah, I mean, they were great. Tony was great. And I was certainly entertained by the booth. So yeah, that was one of the big stories. Another one, Brandon Jones actually won the first stage, and coming to the end of stage 2, which I believe Austin Cindric won. And so Jones is coming to the checkered. He gets turned around, slides through the grass. His splitter digs in, destroys the front end, comes back up the racetrack, and gets clobbered by another car. Very unfortunate. Another bad-looking wreck there. Not as bad as that wreck at the end of last night's race, but still pretty bad. And not much of a finish to this one either. Austin Cindric kind of got out front, and he held off Harrison Burton. And Brett Moffitt had a run down the backstretch on the last lap. Thought maybe he could get to him, but Cindric was able to hold off all the runs and win. So, yeah, picking up right back where he left off at the end of 2020. Austin Cindric, your defending Xfinity champion, looking to defend his title again this year. He's off to a good start with this win at Daytona. And I actually didn't go over the Daytona 500 results here. Let me just look at it here real quick. So Michael McDowell won, obviously. Chase Elliott was second, and Austin Dillon was third. Kevin Harvick was 4th. Denny Hamlin was 5th. Remember, he led 98 laps. Ryan Preece was 6th place. Good run for him. Ross Chastain was 7th. Jamie McMurray, 8th. Corey LaJoie, 9th. And Kyle Larson, your top 10. So there you go. And we also had, of course, the truck race on Friday night, which was won by Ben Rhodes. Ben Rhodes won this race, and the big story here was he passed Corey Roper to win the race. Corey Roper got out front there on the last lap. Looked like he was going to win, but Ben Rhodes had other ideas, and coming back to the checkered, Rhodes got on the outside, passed him pretty decisively. Then Jordan Anderson had a run on the inside, and a photo finish at the line. Jordan Anderson comes up just short again of winning Daytona. Huge wreck behind them. And so Ben Rhodes is your winner at Daytona. Big story in this race. I mean, there was a big wreck involving Todd Gilliland. They were 4 wide going into a corner. And calamity. Can you say? And Todd Gilliland was looking really strong there. He and David Gilliland were racing together. They were up front, 1 and 2 at some points in the race. It's pretty cool to see father and son running first and second place. So at the start of this race, there was a huge wreck with James Buescher, who came back for this race here at Daytona, 2012 truck champion. Gus Dean and Derek Kraus were involved. I mean, they didn't even get to the start line. I mean, there was a huge accordion effect back there. And Stage 1 was won by Rafael Lassard, and Grant Enfinger was second. Sheldon Creed was up front. He led some laps, and that was the first stage. And so there was this weird thing going on between Johnny Sauter and Grant Enfinger. Johnny Sauter, I guess, was mad that Grant Enfinger hung him out at one point in the first stage, and he came over to the radio and said something like, man, we meet up one time, and he already just hangs me out. So Sauter was definitely not happy about that. Problems there between teammates. And so, yeah, I mean, Hailie Deegan, obviously everybody was watching her go into this race. This was her second career start, but her first as a full-time truck driver. And for most of the race, she held her own. And, I mean, she was up in the top 10 at most points, right outside the top 15. And she was actually kind of hanging back towards the end, just kind of waiting to go. And unfortunately for her, she spun out on the backstretch late in the going, just under 20 to go. I think what had happened, because that was just right after that big wreck, and that was involving Todd Gilliland and a couple of others, Stuart Friesen, that there was Speedy dry on the track, and when she came off turn 2 and going down the backstretch, you could see her on an onboard camera. It looked like smoke. It looked like a wreck ahead, and so I think she tried to react, and she got loose and spun and went down, hit the inside wall. Initially, I didn't think she had that much damage, but then she turned around, and it looked pretty bad. And it was actually funny. They showed her on her cockpit camera, and she's like waving off the officials to get out of the way. They were about to come, I guess, tow her truck away and get her out and get her to the infield care center, but she was waving them off. She was like, get out of the way, and she ended up driving it back to pit road. So that was pretty funny. So yeah, Ben Rhodes won. Congratulations to him. And that was the truck race. I actually thought the truck race was probably the best race of the weekend. I mean, all of Speed Weeks, I thought the duels were probably the best. But yeah, good race. Not as good of a truck race at Daytona as we've seen in the past, but still very good. So that was probably my favorite race of the weekend. So there you go. That's Daytona. And we do head to the Daytona Road Course next weekend. The only other thing I want to talk about is the Dale Earnhardt documentary on ESPN. And if you've not seen it yet, I mean, go out of your way to watch it. It's absolutely incredible. Goes into pretty big detail about that day. I mean, they touch on that at the very beginning. Actually, not the beginning. It's about midway through. It really starts out talking about the safety and what Dale thought of the safety and the safety measures of NASCAR. And they brought up the death of J.D. McDuffie in 1991 at Watkins Glen. They had Kyle Petty on there talking about Adam. Then, of course, they talk about the 500, and they talk about the seniors wreck, and Dale Jr.'s there, and he's goes into a lot of detail on what he was thinking at the time, what his reaction was to it, and really emotional to watch. I mean, it's very tough to watch, and a lot of tough things to hear. But I mean, the way it was put together, it was an incredible documentary. And they actually tied it back in the end to the Ryan Newman wreck. And they talked about that, and they had Ryan Newman there getting interviewed. And yeah, and he basically talked about, had it not been for the Hans device, he wouldn't be sitting in his chair that day doing that interview. And yeah, overall, I thought it was a great documentary. You should definitely go watch it. I mean, what is there left to say? I mean, the only thing, I mean, I can watch it and at least have peace with it, because, there were multiple times they showed old footage of Dale getting interviewed, and somebody would ask him about racing, and he said, if I die doing this, I die happy. And he said that on multiple occasions. So to me, that's the way I can have peace with it. And I mean, what is there left to say? I mean, NASCAR's done an excellent job ever since Dale's death in terms of safety. I mean, no fatalities have been on a NASCAR track ever since. I did find it interesting that Kyle Petty was talking about at the time, you know, before Dale's death, NASCAR was very hesitant to or at least the drivers were hesitant to wear the Hans device. They didn't feel it was comfortable and things like that. And Kyle Petty said, you know, you can line up all these drivers and they'll give you 1,000 excuses on why they didn't wear them. And he said it's just, there's no reason to not wear them. And I mean, Kyle was a huge advocate for safety, obviously, after Adam was killed. And yeah, you can just tell it hurt him. I mean, it hurt him that, it hurt him, and it also just pissed him off that, you know, these drivers are not, they didn't want to wear Hans. And here's this guy who lost his son in a crash who, you know, had he been wearing a Hans, he would have probably still been here today. And that same goes for Dale Earnhardt and you know, Kerry Irwin Jr. and Tony Roper as well. So, yeah, definitely go out of your way to watch it. I'm sure it'll come on ESPN again, or you can probably find it on YouTube. It's the Dale Earnhardt E60 documentary. Very good documentary. All right, so that is going to be it for me. I will be back sometime later this week to talk the Daytona road course coming up this weekend. We're right back at Daytona. Get ready, everybody. More road course racing here in the best season ever of NASCAR. And that is it. Everybody have a good day.